Hey guys, happy Thursday and welcome to my tea time. So, cheers. Wait, am I on my Sometimes I get confused. Okay, I'm on my right one. I was on my other account earlier and I was like, wait, is it my correct um Instagram account? So, hi guys. Happy Thursday and welcome to tea time. And I hope you guys have your tea, your coffee. Mine has ice in it, so it's starting to be winter, spring, summer, and starting to get hot. So now I'm gonna put some ice on my tea. So I'm excited because my friend Efrain is gonna be joining me today, and he's gonna be sharing about redefining fatherhood. And I'm super excited. Yesterday I shared a little bit why I'm excited. So let me just have him join, and I'll share a little bit more about him as he's on live. Let me see. Hey, Angie. Thank you for joining us. Hey,
Hey, how are you? Can you hear
I'm
me?
good. Yeah, I can hear you. How are
Awesome,
you?
awesome. I'm good, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm excited too. So, to share a little bit
Yes.
about you, I'm going to read a little bit of your bio. Um, and then I have some questions for you. So, I'm excited. Yesterday, I was sharing on my stories how I'm excited because you're in this space of, reflecting and seeing how there's patterns and behaviors and how you're changing them and choosing differently. So,
Yes.
yeah, so Efrain, I always want to say Efrain.
Yeah, my name is a little bit weird. You can say Efrain or Efren or Efrain. So
Efrain.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay. So Efrain, he is a certified life coach, and he's also the founder of Latino Dad Connection, an organization dedicated to raise awareness and support for the Latino father involvement. Efrain's mission is to inspire fathers to live legendary lives and create meaningful connections with their partners and children. Latino Dad Connection provides workshops, groups, and individual coaching to parents and families. He also holds a master's degree in human and family development from Arizona State University. So when I read
Yes.
that, I was like, I think I'm going to have you come over to, to Life Coach Our Family.
Oh man. Yeah, definitely. It's something that I love to do, working with families and children. I've been doing it for about 8 years now. Definitely have learned a lot about myself and the space as well.
Mm, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you, to start off the conversation, like for you to share a little bit of your upbringing and how was that for you?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, I was born in Mexico City, and I was there for about 10 years. And life over there was a bit rough, a little difficult. We were, didn't have much. Really lived day by day. Our home was, uh, you know, very minimal things that we had. We didn't have like a water heater,
Mm,
electricity will go out all the time, things like that. So my mom and my dad would both work a lot, and my dad, he struggled with alcoholism when I was growing up.
mm,
So I didn't see him as much. He wasn't as involved with me. And my mom was did the best that she could.
mm,
Another thing that I always share is that when I was about 3 years old, I I got really sick, and my mom rushed me to the hospital. She didn't know what was going on. And a funny story is that I was raised Catholic, and Catolicismo. If you're not
mm,
baptized, you I don't know what they believe, but basically, like what she did was that she took me to a church really quick and baptized me. So you're allowed to baptize someone if you
mm.
feel that they're not gonna make it. So,
Wow.
so yeah, at 3 years old, I went through that, and basically half of my body was paralyzed, where I couldn't move half of my body, and was in the hospital for a while, and then I started gaining back my movement on my body. And they found a small tumor in my brain that kind of
Wow.
was affecting that part of my body. and everything thankfully went back to normal, except for,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people noticed my eye is a little bit closed. I've had surgeries on my eye, a couple surgeries to kind of just make it look a little bit even compared to my other one. But that, going through that as a child, I would have to go to different doctors or hospitals. So I was spending a lot of time with my mom. I got really close to my
Mm-hmm.
mom. And my dad, unfortunately, he wasn't there, and maybe he didn't think that it was important, or he didn't know how to. So there was some things that, you know, lacked in that sense. But after that, I moved here to the U.S. For to see if we can find a doctor and help and stuff like that. And yeah, so I from 10 years old all the way to now, I've been living here. I live here in Orange County with my wife, and I have
Mm-hmm.
a 5-year old, and then I have a 10-month old too. So
Aw.
yeah, it's a little bit about me. I mean, there's a lot more I can share, but I don't want to,
No,
how much time do we
definitely.
have? Yeah,
We got some time. We totally got some time.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man, so you went through a lot growing up as a kid. Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that everything went well when you were a kid and you survived all of that.
Yeah, I did go through a lot looking back at it. At the time, I didn't think it was a lot. I was just like, going through life basically.
Yeah.
But looking back at it is like, wow, I am very resilient, right? Because I have continued to overcome
Yeah.
adversity, even though, there was a lot of things that, maybe were not in my favor. But it's just learning one day at a time and just being here and doing things that I love, I think are important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. So I have a question too, since you mentioned about your dad being an alcoholic and not being
Hmm.
there. So what was it
Hmm.
for you like in your dad? Like how would he show up? And how are you
Yeah.
showing up differently?
Yeah, so some of the memories that I have, when I say he wasn't there, like obviously he was sometimes, but there was very few memories that I have of that. But I do have a lot of memories of me like going to like the neighbor's house and telling my dad to
Mm.
like my mom would say, "Dile a tu papá que se venga a la casa," and he would be like
Oh,
playing like cards and drinking. So I would go and like go tell, "Hey dad, like it's time to go home," and then he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll go right now."
yeah.
I have memories of that, or like even in Mexico, like they don't care like who buys beer, like
Hmm.
you're a kid. So
Yeah.
my dad would send me out to buy beer, like, oh yeah, venme a comprar una caguama, like the big the big beer. So I was like 7 years old, right? So like maybe carrying like two big caguamas full
Beers.
each.
Maybe as big as you when you were a kid.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
remember like one time it's like I dropped one because I was like barely trying to hold on, and I was so scared because I was gonna,
uh,
my dad was
get in
gonna
trouble.
beat me. But that's one of the things that I do want to share. He was never violent, which was, I
Mm.
think, a blessing. I think he did hit me like with the belt like maybe 2 or 3 times, but it was very
Mm.
rare. But I
Uh,
think his parenting style was more of like the neglectful, like he didn't really know or how to interact with me, or he didn't really think it was that important, or he didn't think it was his role as a father to do so. It was more of the mother's role. So
yeah.
a lot of those things, I'm trying to unlearn myself.
Yeah, I have like a similar like background too with my dad. And it's not like he also wasn't around because he was working all day.
Hmm.
And the only time that I really got to spend with him was on the weekends. And on Saturdays we'd go to church and have lunch or we'd have dinner. And that was like our only family time. Which also it's like a blessing in some ways, but he was never around like during the week. And just like how
Hmm.
you're saying too, like and for him I think it's also that space of like it's not priority, like the mom's there, so I'm gonna go
Yeah.
make money and keep the house and keep the
Hmm.
necessities on the table or under the roof, whatever.
Hmm.
But it's interesting because growing up and being an adult now, it's like, oh, what I wanted was his interaction with me. Like I
Yeah.
wanted him to spend more time with me, and he
Hmm.
would try his best, but it wasn't like what I wish I had in a way.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting too because even you sharing about like your dad sending you off to go get beer,
Hmm.
like for me it was like a routine, and it's crazy because the other day I saw like this post how it's not normal, but I thought it was normal where when my dad came home I would have to have a beer ready for him, like cerveza con clamato,
Oh my
and
goodness.
it was just a thing. And it's funny
Yeah.
too because he'd be hanging out like in the backyard or whatever, and he'd be like, "Hey, trae una cerveza con clamato." Like I already
Yeah.
showed you how, so you know how.
Yeah.
And as a kid, it's you don't think too much of it, and also because
Yeah.
your dad's happy, so it's like okay, like I'll do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But I saw a post recently how that's not healthy.
Yeah, we were trained to be bartenders from an early age, you
Yeah,
know.
we can put that on our resume.
No, no, for sure. And that's, yeah, I mean, it seems so normal, especially in the culture, in the Mexican culture. Uh, Beer and drinking is just part of a party, part of life, part of, you have so much advertisement. You drink when you're happy, you drink when you're sad, you drink when you're
Yeah,
every time, so it just becomes a part of you that you don't realize that how harmful it can be, when it does
yeah.
become an addiction. Obviously, I'm not against like drinking, I drink occasionally,
Hmm.
but when it did in my early 20s, it did start to become a problem for me, and I didn't
Hmm.
understand that. I would
Uh,
drink a lot, get drunk, pass out. Yeah, I mean, I have stories, but again, I don't want
We're gonna do another
to.
tea time for
Yeah,
just drinking stories.
yeah, all my drinking stories. But I
How we stopped
realized
drinking.
that, yeah, I realized how much that affected my relationships with my partner, how much that affected my relationship with my parents, and now like having children, right? How is that going to affect my relationships with my own children? So, yeah,
Yeah. How have you been showing up differently for your two daughters? What's
uh,
something that, or a couple of things that's different that how your
yeah,
dad was
yeah.
never?
I mean, it's been a learning experience, to be honest. Like, there's so much that I can talk about, but really, first of all, is unlearning
Mm,
what it means to be a man, right? What it means, like what
mm,
society kind of shares or puts the picture of what a man is through like advertisement, through movies, and just what was shown with my own father and uncles and things like that. So that's been like the first process that I'm still doing, right? I'm actually reading
mm,
a book that is really good. It's called Undefine Your Masculinity by
mm.
Justin Baldoni. He's the one that came out in the Jane the Virgin. And he
Okay.
talks about how, society kind of puts these roles on what a man should be, how brave he should be, how he should look like, how
Mm,
he should act, and things like that. So it's really that's been
yeah.
the first process of like really like thinking about myself and like be like, oh man, like what kind of man do I want to be for my daughters? So that's been the process just on its own. And then another thing is the involvement, right? The involvement that
Mm,
I've been talking about, right? I think a lot of men or a lot of fathers think that it's the mother's role to raise a child. Like
mm,
I don't know how to do it, but has been so much research on like how important the father role is, and when the father is involved, how children are better in school. They're more likely to go to
mm,
college. They're less likely to go to jail. They're less likely to have sex during their teenage years.
mm,
Especially like for example, you were saying like I wish my father would have been like more involved, right? The father and daughter relationship is really important because
mm,
the father really puts the example or the standard. You set the standard for your daughter, like what type of man you're going
mm,
to kind of look for, right? And if it is
yeah.
less than that, then you're probably gonna run away, right?
Yeah.
Because like, hey, I'm not gonna. I didn't even allow my father to treat me like that. So why would I allow
Yeah.
another person? So it's really setting that standard for daughters, right? And then because if we don't have that, what a daughter is looking for is, you know, they're gonna look for care and affection, or maybe it was like a dysfunctional relationship with their father, and they're gonna go in a
Mm.
dysfunctional relationship, romantic relationship, and it's gonna feel okay. It's gonna feel, you know, normal because that's
Normal.
what they're used to, you know. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I really like to talk about prevention in my work. My work is about prevention because what I
Mm.
really want is I want to work with parents for the kids to have a better uh, life and have more, uh, you know, ways to so that they can grow up in a healthier environment. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a big one. Just being involved with the child. Another one is healthy relationships. So
Mm.
how do I show up with my own wife, right? Again,
Mm.
I didn't see this in my growing up. Like I didn't see a healthy relationship for me growing up. So
Mm. What
now
did
I
you
had to,
see? What
yeah.
did you see like with your parents? Like the same thing, like
Uh,
what did you see with your parents and you were like, "Oh, I don't like this," or something feels off or this is unhealthy and you've been choosing differently or showing up differently like with your wife.
oh man. So yeah, the big one is I have known that my dad has cheated on my mom
Mm.
several times since we were in Mexico, and it was
Okay.
just this thing that, you know, it was never talked about, but
Yeah.
as a kid you kind of like just overhear things, and you know your parents are going through stuff and stuff, things like that. And actually
Yeah.
that was actually one of the reasons too that we decided to move to the US, because my
Mm.
mom and my dad were about to break up, and my mom was like, you know what, she had family here, so she was like, I'm gonna go with my brothers over there, you know, they're gonna help me out with my
Uh.
kids. And my dad was like, well, I'm gonna go with you, you know, so you can see that I'm committed to you. And he
Mm.
did. He came with us, you know, but then continue to also do that, you know,
Mm.
continue to cheat and things like that. And then, just to be honest, I also, when I started my marriage, I did that as well, right?
Mm. Okay.
Because in my mind, it's like, okay, this is what I, you know, this is
It's
what
like
I
normal.
saw. It's normal, you know. And my mom always took my dad back, so I'm sure my wife would take me back. You know, this is
Mm.
like, you know what, just subconsciously what I'm thinking, not necessarily like I allowed, but subconsciously it's like, you know,
Yeah.
like I always saw my mom taking my dad back. You know, so it's
Yeah.
fine. She, you know, if she finds out, she'll take me back. But you know, there was a one time that it really got bad. It was I was, you know, going through a lot, and you know, my wife ended up you know, catching me, and like um at that
Mm.
time she actually moved out of my apartment.
Okay.
We didn't have kids at that moment, so that was good. She moved out, and like didn't want to talk to me for we didn't talk for like 2 weeks. So in those 2 weeks that
Mm.
we were apart, I really had time to reflect on my story and like what I was
Mm.
doing and stuff like that. And like I you know, I even contemplated like maybe I should just get a divorce and, you know, do whatever I want.
Uh.
But then I had on the other side my wife, like that she has been the rock and she has been amazing
Mm.
woman. So it's like, you know, these ideas, and then obviously I wanted to fight for my wife. And
Yeah.
it was crazy because so when she finally decided or agreed to talk to me, we met at a
Mm.
park, and she had like the big list of all the things that I needed to change. And I was like,
Mm.
oh
Oh shit.
man. I
She
was
was
like, oh
reflecting
shit.
too. She
Yeah,
was
she was
totally
like,
reflecting too.
oh man, it was
And
like,
she was writing it down.
yeah, it was like a reality check for me. Like she
Uh-huh.
was like, "Oh yeah, you want this relationship to work? Well, this is what you need to do.
Mm.
You need to change careers. You need to actually at that time I own a party bus, which was
Okay.
another thing. So it's like you need to sell your business. You need to change your number, change your social media, you know,
Mm.
I can go on. Like, there's so many things that she like had for me, and I
Uh-huh.
was like, oh man, like it's literally changing
You're
my
like,
life. Yeah.
my mom didn't do this at all.
Yeah, my mom didn't do it. Like, what
My
the
mom
hell?
was just like, okay.
Yeah, no.
Uh,
But
in that moment, did it kind of give you like a different perspective of like, oh, this is not normal, or oh shit, like she's actually gonna leave me?
yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, dang, this girl's serious, right? And at the moment, I was like, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah. And another one was like, we had to go to couples therapy. But yeah, at the moment, I was
Mm,
like, yeah, sure, I'll do it, no problem. But then, the work had to be done, and like
yeah,
actually doing the things, and I struggled to be honest because that's what I knew,
yeah.
but looking back now, it's like that moment was the turning point of where I am
Mm,
today. If
okay.
she had not done that, like set those standards and those boundaries, I would probably I don't think I would be talking to you, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's the other question that I was gonna ask you is like, when did it shift for you? But you just said it, like in that moment, it shifted.
It shifted. Not it was not
Yeah,
necessarily the moment, but it was basic. Yeah, it was that turning point right there, right where I'm like,
yeah,
oh, like maybe I need to work on my shit.
yeah.
But it really has been a lot of work since then. That probably happened. I want to say like 7, 8 years ago. And
Okay,
since then,
it's
I've
been
been
work.
in this path of like self reflection and like really unlearning
Mm,
different things about myself, and
yeah,
then starting going to like switching my job has really helped me to work with people in behavioral health. And right now what I'm doing is
yeah.
I'm facilitating parenting classes, right? So
That's
I'm working
awesome.
with parents. Yeah, I'm working with parents
Yeah.
on a daily basis. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean,
I have a
like I
question
said,
too. Like, how does it feel to be working on this part of your life, even from the start, like 8 years ago to now?
yeah, it feels liberating, to be honest.
Mm,
I think that's a word because I am able to share my story with anyone now, that's hearing it, and
yeah,
really not care, because I feel
yeah,
that I have worked through some things that and I also wanted to be an inspiration for people that might be going through something similar, right? I'm not
yeah,
perfect. I'm far from being perfect. I'm still working on a lot of things, but I'm owning my story. I'm owning my story, and
yeah,
I think it's the first step of like taking ownership of who you are and where you came from, and then like
yeah,
where you're going. You're right. So definitely,
yeah. Yeah, I want to thank you for sharing that story because that's super vulnerable. Super, super
yeah.
vulnerable. So what's like I have a couple questions more, but what's something or what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's in that space and they have an option to like reflect and change, but they're so scared to?
Yeah, especially for men, I think it's sometimes we wait until like we hit rock bottom or something really happens,
Mm,
for us to actually change. We feel, or I felt that, it was just normal. Like this is what it is to be a man. Like you sleep with different women and do this, and until you realize how much you're actually might be hurting other people, right? Or you might be hurting
mm,
yourself, or your habits might take you somewhere else. So I would
yeah,
say, like, don't wait till that happens, right? Don't wait
yeah,
until you had to hit rock bottom, something happens, you get in a car accident. There were
yeah,
so many times that I drove like drunk, and I thank God I did never crashed, but there were so many times that I could have done that, and it can take like
yeah,
a split second to really change your life.
yeah.
So
I feel. Mm.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I feel like sometimes, like before we hit rock bottom, the universe or God will send little messages or little events or situations to kind of like alert us. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's our intuition, and if we don't listen, like we end up at rock bottom, you know.
Yeah.
And I read a book by Gabby Bernstein. She talked more about like being in rock bottom, how
Mm-hmm.
many people find their blessings there. You know, it's just meant to be in that
Mm-hmm.
way. And if you see somebody going through that space, to just pray for them that they have a gentle rock bottom and that
Yeah.
they come out reflective or learning something or connected more to God. Yeah,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that I wanted to share too, like with what you were sharing, it's interesting because growing up, I also built like this, I don't know if it's like personality or persona of what Hispanic men were like.
Mm.
And as a young kid, I remember telling myself, like, I don't want to date a Mexican dude. I don't want to date a Hispanic guy. And it's crazy because it's like I
Yeah.
would see that in my family with like my uncles or my dad, where it was like, it's what the man said. Like, the woman doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
a say. Or my uncles
Yeah.
would cheat and the whole family would know except for the wife. And it's like, what? Like, I don't, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's so shitty, or like
Yeah.
their behavior, like so many things. So I I remember saying that as a kid, and I didn't date like Hispanics for a while, and it took part of me to rewire that too. Like, wait, not all
Mm-hmm.
men, not all Hispanic men are like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think a lot of it has to do with like our own trauma that we go through, right? So like we feel that, because these men were like this, that every man that looks like this,
yeah.
is going
It's
to
gonna
be, yeah. So
exactly like that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so
So it's
true.
so it's really reflecting back. I was like, oh, okay, like why do I think like this? Is it really that about like Mexican men or brown
Yeah,
men? Or is it about
yeah,
my
it
own
is.
experience?
Yeah, a lot of it is like reflecting, like, and I always share this too. It's like even if we don't share with like other people, just being in that
Mm-hmm.
space of reflecting on our own, like, why do I have that thought process, or why do I have
Exactly.
that perspective, or
Yeah,
and
our own
when you,
biases, right?
yeah, and it opens up just to have the openness to ask that to ourselves opens up like so much other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so another, let me just go through this really quick. Hey guys, thank you for joining us. I'm gonna
Yes,
wave.
thank you.
Hey
See a couple
Angie,
of my friends here.
I'm doing good. How are you? I'm waving to everybody. Hi guys.
Yes, yes.
Hey Albert,
Yes.
thank you. Alberto. Awesome. That's exciting. So another question that I have is, well, yeah, I mean, you kind of answered it too because I wanted to ask you, like, you went from a life coach to working on life coaching to redefine fatherhood. So, kind of a
Yeah.
little bit like, what does redefining fatherhood mean? And
Yeah.
why did you go from life coaching to redefining fatherhood?
Yeah, so when I graduated from my master's degree, I wanted to start my own business. I always have like an entrepreneur mindset
Mm,
where I want to be able to work on something that I love and be making money, because life is too short. So definitely, that was always one of my goals. And life coaching was a perfect avenue because I was kind of already doing that with parents, but
um,
I didn't have the certification. So I went through that, and then I got my own life coach, to kind of guide me through that process of
that's awesome.
starting my business. And once my coach went through all that, one of the questions that he asked me, he's like, when you die, what legacy do you want to leave, right? Well, how do you want people to
Mm,
remember you? And that question really like got to me, like, oh dang, like I don't know, like that's an interesting question.
yeah.
But I really wanted to help children, right?
Mm,
Help children grow up in a safe, healthy environment. And the way that I saw myself as a unique experience that I lived is through fatherhood, right? And
mm,
being able to help fathers, and especially brown fathers, fathers of color, que hablen español, que hablen inglés, and that's my strength, right? I'm bilingual. I look
yeah.
like, I'm Mexican, so I look like a brown father.
Mm,
I hope that I'm setting the example for other men, that it's okay
yeah.
to be a different way, right?
Yeah.
So then I really started to, and it took me a long time because me like just advertising to fathers was a very a struggle for me because I'm like, what if men are not gonna listen? Like, what if all these
Mm,
thoughts are coming, like men don't even care about this, that but
yeah.
at first it was a little difficult to gain traction, but now I have many Latinos that are willing to go through that self-discovery journey and learn more about themselves and, kind of
Yeah.
go through that. So redefining
Yeah.
fatherhood is about individual stories. It's not necessarily about we're redefining what fatherhood looks like, but more of like
Mm.
reflecting on your own
Mm.
story, unlearning those things that that you were brought up with, what you thought, fatherhood or masculinity is, right? And how are those things serving you? If they're not serving you, let those go. And redefining, right? Redefining yourself to
Mm.
be the man and the father that you want to be, so that you are able to create a healthy environment for your kids, for your children, for your wife, and
Yeah.
eventually for your family. So the way that I do this is through groups. So I
Mm.
run dad groups, men's groups, where we reflect on our own experience. I always tell the dads, we're all teachers, we're all students here. I'm going through this
Yeah.
process myself. Let's learn from each other. So it's really creating
That's
that space for,
awesome.
yeah, it's really creating that space for men to come and take off those masks.
Yeah.
One of the
Heck
things I
yeah.
put one of the things that I put in my on my like logo, or is I put a little luchador, right? He has a mask on.
Mm.
Yeah, and the reason why is because I'm actually gonna put another one without a mask, because that's like growing up. I always watched like wrestling luchadores, and they always had the
Yeah.
mask on, and I always wanted to know like what's behind the mask, right? and
Uh-huh.
and I feel like a lot of us have that, right? A lot of men have that, where we have a mask and we want to, at the end of the day, once you take off the mask, it's like it feels so good and you can just be yourself. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. It makes me excited. And I keep saying this like again and again that you're doing this work because a lot of the men that I know personally or acquaintances that I know, they're showing up to their kids differently. And even like some of my own brothers, because I'm adopted, that's a whole other story though, but some of my brothers are showing up differently and they didn't have their dad around. So they're
Mm-hmm.
just showing up in the way that they wish again. Like my dad was never around, so I'm going to be present. And they're
Mm-hmm.
trying their best, with what they know.
Yeah.
And just other men too, it's they're showing up with how they know or whatever they know with the tools that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it just takes like one person like you to show up and to ask a question or to share what you're doing. And for other men, like you'll click. Like they might not be entirely in the community just yet, but I feel like I really, really feel that because we're all humans, so I really feel that it's already in their heart to
Yeah.
want to take out the mask, or it's in
Yeah.
their heart to be vulnerable or to want connection and desire, but they just don't know how,
Mm-hmm.
and it also hits like home because I've had so many conversations with my dad where it's like, hey, like I was about men and I read this, like, what do you think? And he's shared here and there where like I'm supposed to be the man of the house, like I can't do that, or I can't cry, or I have to be
Mm-hmm.
working, or like all this other stuff. And there's a book that I read by Brene Brown, and she shares how she was speaking in speaking, and a family came up, and the daughter and the mom came up, and they were like appraising her work, like, hey, thank you, like vulnerability, like all this stuff. And I guess the dad came to her as like the mom and the daughter were leaving, and the dad was like, why don't you talk about us, like we're hurting inside, like those women prefer seeing me die on a horse than seeing me fall off the horse
Mm-hmm.
and asking for help. And it's so interesting because it kind of expanded that perception or perspective, how it's not just men but it's also society, right? Like, or women
Mm-hmm.
or the wives who add that much pressure to the men to be a certain way.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting. So it hits home in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No, and I think a lot of times, because us men, or just myself, have a hard time expressing myself, expressing emotion,
yeah,
expressing, anger, expressing sadness, or like even like you said, crying. Like crying seemed
yeah,
like a feminine emotion, but it's really like
yeah,
anybody, it's just a human emotion, really. And suppressing my emotions, like not crying, has really hurt me in different ways that I don't even
Yeah.
understand. So because we have done that, oftentimes I think women might not acknowledge that men do hurt inside. They're like, oh, he's strong, he got this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of like what Brene Brown was like, kind of saying. Like, I didn't think about that, but it's
Yeah.
kind of stepping into that.
Yeah. It's super interesting. But yeah, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to
Hmm.
this conversation, to this talk?
Um, I mean, there's so much, right? There's so much
Yeah, yeah.
I can talk about. So yeah,
That's awesome. I
no,
love it.
I'm going through this journey, and I invite any man that is looking, or if you are, you have a partner that might be interested in, just being in a group of fathers, where we're just sharing our story and being real with each other, and not just talking about sports and cars. We're really talking
Mm, like
deep.
real conversations.
I mean, sports and car are a real conversation. Don't get me wrong,
You're right.
but
You're right.
but I think they're very surface level, right? And we're gonna go deeper to, like, what your values are and things like that. How do you want to show up and stuff? So yeah, just follow me on Instagram, Latino Dad Connection. You can feel free to send me a text, or a DM, and I will, like, gladly answer you. Also, I am doing a free workshop for couples, because I believe that one of the things that we need to master as fathers before we can be good dads is building healthy relationships, whether it be with your partner or with, if you're co-parenting. That relationship piece is always going to be there. And like I mentioned, I was not taught how to have a healthy relationship growing up, so I had to learn a lot of things, and I'm learning a lot of things. So that's one thing that I want to work on, within my
Mm,
with my business. So it's just gonna be like a date night, reconnect with your partner. I'll guide you through some activities and things like that. So yeah, if you're interested, that's gonna be February 19th, from 7 to 8:30. So just send me a message. And I do also, like, like these talks every Thursday, right? So check
mm.
out my talks, and if you would like to come on and share your story, please let me know, and we'll book that. So other than
That's
that,
awesome.
um, I mean, I don't know, like, if there's anything
Yeah.
else you want to ask me, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, like, much for showing up on my tea time and for sharing your story and for being vulnerable and raw. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that you mentioned where it's vulnerable and raw. So I really appreciate that. Those are the conversations that I want to have. And again, I'll keep saying it. I'm excited that you're here and that you're sharing this message and that you're giving this
Hmm.
space to other men. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
I had a lot of fun. I think those two words are very important: vulnerability and just being honest or raw with yourself. And that's how you can, like, liberate, yourself. And yeah, let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll stay connected.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate all of you guys. I'm gonna
yes.
wave
Thank you for
before I
joining.
log out. Yeah. Thank you guys. If you have any comments or questions or anything else that arises, just comment below or message us. So much love, guys.